Okay, today we're going to be going over Unit 3, Lesson 6 notes. The first set of questions is just determine how each of the 5 equations differ from the others and be prepared to justify your answer with sound mathematical reasoning. Well, we have Desmos, so we can use Desmos to try and figure out what our answers are. So the first one, if we plugged it into Desmos, you can easily do it, and you will see that it will have 2 roots. Okay, we could also do it by factoring, and we can actually find it there. Now, the next one, if you graphed it on Desmos for B, it would not cross the x-axis at all, so we would call it imaginary roots. Okay. Next one, if you graphed it for C, it would have some real roots. Okay. If we graphed D, we would have some imaginary irrational some irrational or imaginary roots. And the last one, if we graphed it, it would actually touch the x-axis once, so it would only have one root. So just be able to have a reason for either one for those. All right. So now we're going to decide if we read them. If we look at the problems, we're going to find the roots, and if they're says real or complex imaginary, then write the equation in factored form. So here are roots. We have 2 roots because it crosses twice. We have 2 roots. Okay, they are real. Okay, because they cross at -3, 0, and at 2, 0. And if we need to write the equation for them, we take, if there's any number in front of the x squared, we bring it with it. But here they don't. So we're going to do is we're going to go x and the opposite of one of our roots. So instead of a -3, we're going to add 3 and x minus 2. Same with the next one. We can see it crosses right here. It's a little off, but we're going to go with whatever we can. We could use Desmos, but we're going to go with just eyeballing it. So here we see it does cross twice, and it's about at -2, 0 and at 4, 0. They are real because they do cross, and we can rewrite the equation. There's nothing in front of the x squared, so we don't need to worry about that. X, instead of -2, we're going to add 2. And x, instead of +4, we're going to make it a -4. All right, so now let's look at the next ones. Here we have our equation. It's only touching the x-axis in one place. So we're going to only have one root, and that's going to be at 2, 0. And it is a real one because it does follow. Now the equation, again, there's nothing in front of x squared, so we got some easy ones. We're going to go x minus 2 because it was a +2, and we can do x minus 2. We could also write this one as x minus 2 squared because there were 2 of them. Now, if we look at the next one, we can see it does not cross the x-axis at all, so it does not have any roots. But if we did have some roots, they would be imaginary or complex. This is when we had a negative inside the square root. When we were doing quadratic formula, you would have a I in there, imaginary number. Now, we did the quadratics, and if we look at the cubed roots, we can actually do the same thing. Here we see it's crossing in 3 places. Okay. It's crossing at a -2, a 0, and a 5. And we can rewrite it. There's nothing in front of x cubed, so that's good. we can go x. Opposite of that minus 2 is a positive 3. The x at the 0, it doesn't matter if it's a plus 0 or a minus 0. They're going to be the same thing. And then x, crossing at 5 is going to be x minus 5. Now, if you see here, we're touching this. We're touching it and coming back down. So that means it's touching it it's touching in that spot 2 times. So when we write it, touching the negative 4, so it's x plus 4, we do need to have a square there because we are touching it twice, going up to it and then coming back down. And then here we see it's touching at 1, so it's going to be x minus 1. Okay. Now, this one, a little bit odd, but you can see it's in parentheses. We can definitely see it is crossing at positive 3, but the others are going to be imaginary. And here's how I'll show you how we can do it. So we can actually go x plus 3 equals 0, and then we're going to go x squared plus 4 equals 0. We want to get the x by itself, so I'm going to add a minus 3 to both sides. And that's one of our roots. So we can actually see it does cross at x is negative 3. Now this one, we want to get the x squared by itself first. And then to get rid of the square, we're going to take the square root, okay, on both sides. And we always have to put a plus minus because we don't know if it's positive or negative. Now we'll bring this down, get x squared equals a plus minus. Now we can break up a negative 4 to be a negative 1 and just positive 4. The only time we can break up a square root is if we are multiplying it, and they both have to be square roots. Now the neat thing with this one is the square root of 1 is I. Just imaginary number, it's always going to be I. And we know the square root of 4 is 2. Should be an x squared, sorry. And we can get this one, 2x equals plus or minus 2i. And that is going to be your imaginary or complex answer. All right, now you're going to be working on your assignment.